Call of Juarez. Not the kind of series that gets a lot of recognition for bringing that western feel to the first-person shooter genre, but a series that, in my opinion, is incredibly underrated and doesn't get talked about often enough. Except for the cartel. We don't ever talk about the cartel unless you're any of these content creators that go through hell to play this game and make videos for our own entertainment. Funnily enough, despite watching videos on the series, I've never actually taken the time to step into a Call of Juarez game, with the only other western games I've played being the Red Dead Redemption series. So I decided to jump into the most accessible and easiest game to run out of the 4 available, as well as what many people regard as the best title, Gunslinger. Suffice to say, I had a blast playing this game, and I'd go out of my way to call it a masterpiece, with only one caveat that I have, which I'll cover when I get to that point. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down what makes Call of Juarez Gunslinger so great and fun to play. Let's get into it, shall we? The game starts off in Abilene, Kansas in 1910, as an old man rides his horse down towards a saloon and a car comes out of nowhere, seemingly almost killing him. This old man is known as Silas Greaves, a legendary bounty hunter from the Wild West era, and is the character you'll be playing. Upon entering the saloon, he greets himself to a few people: a sarcastic man named Jack, an old-timer called Steve, a bartender named Molly, a teenager named Dwight, and a barman named Ben, who recognize who he is and wants him to retell some of his old stories, despite these tales being told in books, as Dwight says to Greaves. Greaves regards these stories as folk tales and insists on telling the stories the way they actually happened. This sets up the premise for the entire game, as you'll be going back in time to the Wild West era, particularly the late 1800s, where a lot of these well-known outlaws and legends were made. Throughout the game, you'll be visiting various locations, seemingly during the time that Silas was alive and active, going up against the law and various outlaws, with Silas narrating the entire thing as if it's being told in monologue, and the narrative occasionally adjusting based on Silas's memory at the time. I love whenever he forgets something and the game just changes right before your eyes, creating that interactive storytelling experience. Take this moment here where Greaves talks about being attacked by Indians, but what he was trying to say was that he was attacked by these men Apache style.
Hold on, were you attacked by Apaches? What happened to the cowboys?
Did I say they were Apaches? I said Clanton's cowboys attacked me Apache style. I was in a pitched battle, but I was holding my own against an overwhelming enemy force.
Or this segment here where he suddenly remembers a path appearing before his eyes, like some kind of made up story. It really adds a lot to the game's charm and brings a lot to Silas's character. My favorite use of this is when he's on a train to hunt the infamous James brothers down, and he gets up to go to the toilet, which slows everything down to a pulp, and the same train you're in as it happens just loops over and over again. I didn't even notice this myself until I watched a video on it. Historical accuracy is what I consider to be one of Gunslinger's greatest strengths, and they do the Wild West era justice here, showing many recognizable figures and events. While I always praise the Red Dead series for its immersion and incredible world building, both games are usually fiction in terms of their stories, whereas Silas's is both fact and fiction. Fiction being his character in the way that the events are told, whilst being factual for what these figures actually did. His character is so well done, and if it was to be true, I'd believe it in a heartbeat. Part of this I think comes from the fact that Silas just blends so well as a bounty hunter. Seeing that bounty hunters from this time period are hunting these criminals, sometimes having to work with them to settle the deal or maybe let them off the hook. Billy the Kid is the first of many outlaws shown, with the game's first level taking place at the time of his arrest, during a siege where he and his crew held down the fort from Chef Pat Garrett and his crew, another person who's also factual for his capture. Silas adds to this narrative by being someone who was sort of friends with Billy and assumed by Garrett to be one of Billy's goons, so he was captured alongside Billy before the breakout a few months later. The same goes for all the other outlaws shown, such as the Dalton brothers, who robbed 2 banks in the town Coffeyville at once and created the infamous story of Emmett Dalton, who was shot 23 times across his body, which, by the way, since I researched these guys for a project back in high school, seeing it be reenacted the way it happened in the game is just so cool. The James brothers, famously known for robbing banks, trains and stagecoaches across the Midwest, and Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch, being the most successful train robbing gang in the history of the Wild West era. I just love how integrated Silas's character is to all this, man. It's really fascinating stuff. As the story progresses, you'll learn about Silas's past and why he did all of this over the last 40 years. It all started with poker, where he and his brothers were making so much money that they physically couldn't lose. So, out of spite, jealousy, and anger for losing, Roscoe Bob Bryant, Johnny Ringo, and Jim Reed followed him and his brothers, surrounded them, and hung them all, leaving Silas barely alive, their money returned, and a coin to remember what happened. Silas spends the next 40 years hunting these people down, becoming a bounty hunter in the process and tracking Bob across the different gangs that you encounter in the game, and during the final mission, he hits a sudden realization of the man he's become.
For instance, did my thirst for vengeance turn me into something worse than the man I was after? By this point in my storied career, I had killed more men than Bob Bryant ever had. I was furious as hell at that bastard for making me who I am. A man with no family, no friends, no purpose except shooting Bob Bryant dead.
The final nail in the coffin comes right after completing this mission, where he learns that Ben in the saloon is indeed Bob, as he knew a lot about what happened at the time of the Coffeeville robbery. The game then gives you a choice. Live up to the revenge story that this game has been about the whole time and challenge him to a final duel, or forgive him for what's happened and give him a chance at redemption, letting him walk away and the saloon be free of blood. I respectively chose redemption because, in reality, Silas has become a worse man than Bob already has. He's killed more people, made a lot more money than him, and showed no remorse for anybody that got in his way, so he'd be doing the world a service by saving his life. I also love that the young Dwight turns out to be Dwight Eisenhower, who gets told by Greaves to do something good with his life and not turn to the life of crime as Silas and Bob did, who would end up becoming the President of the United States and leader of World War II. So cool to just see him pop up as a character like that. They're both justified endings no matter which you pick, with the revenge ending being a bit more darker and personal.
Something decent with your life, you hear me?
Sir? Yes, sir.
Gunslinger's game and gunplay is pretty solid, being formulaic of other FPS titles but also having its own spin and satisfaction. Gunslinger brings in concentration, a slow-mo mode that's a staple to the series and is akin to other games like Max Payne and Red Dead's Deadeye, slowing down time, changing to a black and white filter and highlighting your enemies in red, incredibly useful for taking out big groups of enemies. Concentration is built by killing enemies and works within a meter, as shown by the yellow revolver on the top left side of your screen. Your weapon loadout consists of a revolver, which can be dual wielded if you wish, and a big gun, like a rifle or a shotgun. The game is a linear experience all around. Head to point A, kill enemies, head to point B, kill more enemies, with the added options of kicking doors down, having to deal with Gatling guns, and well, using them yourself, rinse repeat. I forgot to mention as well that you can throw dynamite and even shoot them in mid-air. I went with the rifle for my main gun as I was playing this game on hard difficulty, which wasn't too difficult, but I couldn't get the shotgun to work because of how hit scanned the enemies are, plus the amount of damage they can do and the gunfights themselves. A lot of the time, enemies will usually spawn far and have rifles, and though you can just pop them with the revolver and use that as your range weapon, I found it more consistent and easier to just shoot them down with my rifle. Plus it has more ammo. The gunplay itself is punchy, loud, and addicting when you pop heads one after the other, especially during concentration or moments after kicking a door. Gunslinger uses a scoring system that's like other games but functions as an XP system. Well, at least for the story mode anyway. You build your combo by killing enemies with different games for different methods, like blowing them up with dynamite, barrels, and shooting enemies in specific spots. The higher your combo, the more XP you'll gain, losing combo after a few seconds of killing the last enemy, but it can be maintained by shooting barrels and little objects, such as pumpkins if you don't have any enemies in sight. This all goes towards 3 different skill trees, each having their own playstyles and legendary weapons you can unlock after spending a good amount of points within one row. At first I thought to myself, maybe I should just build Gunslinger and go from there, but found out that certain perks can apply to all weapon types, not just one, so it's worth grabbing whatever appeals to you. I opted to get the ranger skills out of the way because I was going for a more passive aggressive playstyle, but you can get by choosing almost anything you want on normal difficulty. It's nothing crazy, but it adds progression and incentivizes you to go for high scores or, in this case, high XP, to get as many of the skills as you can. There's also collectibles you can obtain called Nuggets of Truth, which gives you more lore and backstory into the lives of all the characters and outlaws in this game. Great for collectors and lore enthusiasts. If you're enjoying the video so far, like and subscribe with notifications turned on. For those who are new, I'm Pepsilk and I make all kinds of gaming videos, from reviews to memes and anything that I find of interest. Any support is appreciated and I thank you for being here. Remember that caveat I was talking about at the start? This right here is the caveat. Dueling in this game is not good, and I think part of the reason for that is because of the input I was playing on, which was mouse and keyboard. Let me explain. Dueling is as simple as this. You stare at your target, build enough focus, and trying to keep your crosshair on the target for as long as possible, while simultaneously moving your hand and keeping it on top of your holster, which charges your draw speed the more centered you are to your gun. Once the enemy draws, you draw, moving your crosshair once more and shooting your enemy down. This will result in an honorable duel, as you can get a dishonorable duel by drawing before they do, which I don't have a problem with personally, but some may find it silly because, in a dueling situation, it's kill or be killed. It's great in concept, but poor in execution because of how sloppy it is on mouse and keyboard. Even when I adjusted my sensitivity and changed my DPI, it was too damn slow and I could never get the focusing part right, relying on my draw speed to carry me. I'll just mention it since I'm going to talk about it anyway. There's a dual challenge mode that you can play where you take on 15 targets, but only have 5 attempts to do so, and I used that as an opportunity to switch to the controller. By Sigma, it became so much easier to do, just in general really. Fun game mode by the way, also has a scoring system and a leaderboard if you're into going for high scores. So if you want the best luck in duels, just switch to the controller and you'll be a happy camper. Gunslinger's gameplay really shines in the arcade mode, where you go through different levels from the game and just rack up as many points as you can. Also has leaderboards. No story or imaginary paths, just you and your guns. It was so worth getting 3 stars on all of the levels. Judging from the game's first few moments, you can tell Techland played the fuck out of Borderlands before making this, as the game goes for a cel-shaded art style, which works really well in tandem with the comic book strips when introducing new characters. It fits the Western aesthetic well and gives it that old school touch. As mentioned before, the game is very linear with the exception of the 2 endings, so everyone's going to have the same experience. The game does its best to change it up, navigating mountains, shooting through towns, catching trains, and fighting ghosts. Yeah, aside from that weird moment in the ghost town, everything else is fire, and it never got repetitive for me the whole way through. Gunslinger runs on the Chrome 5 engine, and let's be honest, in 2025, this game can be run on a brick, so you shouldn't have any problems getting this game to work. The mouse sensitivity can be a bit off-putting, as 1000 DPI with the lowest possible sensitivity in game still feels incredibly fast, so turn your DPI down if you're having any issues there. While the game's default FOV is passable, it can be a bit annoying for others, like me who wants to be able to see more around me. But thankfully, there's a way to do it with this Steam guide, which I'll leave below for those who want to adjust it and set it higher. The game has a New Game Plus mode, which lets you carry your skills over and gives you the chance to get every skill in the game. And it said that it was meant to include additional moments and bits for the story, but it was more or less the same experience. I guess they just wanted you to recognize certain events and know that this is the moment this happened, or this is the moment Silas noticed this. Gunslinger is an incredible Western FPS, easily the best in the Call of Juarez series. It's fun, exciting, satisfying, historically accurate, and you can tell Techland put a ton of time and detail into creating the best possible version of Call of Juarez. It's a shame that it was made as a budget title thanks to the cartel, because if it had more money, it would have made for an even bigger, more ambitious game, but they did what they could with the money they had, and that's more than enough for me. This is also the last game in the series, having moved over to zombies, and don't see them coming back to it for the foreseeable future, being 12 years now. Game's cheap for its current price, but if you can get it on sale, even better. I may get around to playing those older games in the future, but for now, thanks for watching. If I missed anything, comment down below. I'll have more coming to you soon. Peace.